Hello and welcome to Open Door. I'm Vince Robinson and I have a very special guest today. He is recording artist Ryan Armand. Ryan, welcome, Open Door.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you having me.
All right, I always like to be transparent, so I start out the shows just giving a little background on how I know folks. And this young man sitting next to me just happens to be a brother of someone that I consider a bonus daughter. She's a very beautiful person, and it's no coincidence that both of them are very significant powerhouses in the realms in which they operate. So again, welcome to Open Door. If you don't know, I'm speaking of Imani Capri, who is on a bit of a break right now because she's pursuing a political elected office. So we wish her well in her pursuits of that. But let's talk to Ryan. The name is Ryan Armand. I know there might be a little bit more to us, but tell us what is significant about Ryan Armand.
Man, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me. I appreciate your contribution to the community. We've done some great work together. I think there's greater things to come. So I'm just grateful for even the last time that I was here, being able to rock out with you and the rest of the band. Had a great time, was able to capture that on film, and that kind of stuff you just, it's a part of history that you just cherish, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So just want to give you your flowers, man.
Thank you.
And say, much respect. But yes, Ryan Armand, like you said, I'm a recording artist, activist, minister. I'm just a servant, just like to use the gifts that I have, the gifts and talents that I have to be a blessing to others and pay it forward. That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. So what brings us to this meeting of the mind, so to speak, is the fact that you have a new project called Legacy. Tell us about that project.
Yes, sir. Legacy. Wow. It's so much to say. It's so much to unpack. Legacy is so powerful because, coming into my consciousness and understanding and learning who I am has been a journey. Right? And what I understand is, to know who you are, you have to know where you come from. So my reality of discovering who I am, discovering where I come from, discovering my responsibility to be able to pass down what I have to the next generation is a legacy. So for me, legacy, what inspired this project is just, tapping into the power within myself, paying homage and honoring those before me. So the great things that were passed down to me, it's my responsibility to carry on those great things and do greater things and take it to another level, which I'm hoping that the generation after me does the same, as I inspire them along with other great people. And then also the trauma that's passed down, the pain that we experience, areas that's broken, things that were passed down to us. In that aspect, we break the cycle, we break generational curses. And create another narrative instead of having a pity party or being bitter about things. I'm a solutionary. I like to, if there's a problem, I like to think about the solution and take action. You know what I mean? So that's what legacy is about in a nutshell.
Okay. You mentioned those who have come before you. Would you care to name some of those folks so that they become named and significant to those who are listening?
Absolutely. It's so many. Just thinking about my faith, and Yahuwah, the Most High, being the creator, that's my reality. And our elder brother, Yahusha, who paved the way. Being a believer from the book of Genesis to Revelation and discovering who I am in Scripture, is very significant to me. But the list goes on as far as like those who came before me, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X. The list goes on. I mentioned so many people on the album, even with my artistry, Tupac, Jay-Z, to those who paved the way for me to do what I do, with this genre of hip hop and rap and poetry and spoken word. So I honor so many. So it's a long list.
Okay, and you also mentioned the idea of trauma being passed down from generation to generation. Can you talk about some of the things that have been of a traumatic nature that have inspired you to learn from them and perhaps engage in a transformative mindset?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, there's been many things that's been passed down as far as the lack of being knowing how to being educated on how to work your finances. So being educated financially, being educated spiritually, numbing the pain with different mechanisms, drinking, smoking excessively, sabotaging yourself from the foods that you eat. There's a number of things that our culture had, some toxic things, some behaviors that we've adapted, that we have adapted from our oppressor, and we've normalized these things, right? And what happens is when we don't do our due diligence to really know how we're supposed to live, we pass those things down, and that's how we end up in poverty. So what I understand is, as I come into my consciousness of understanding, what it is that we're supposed to eat, how we're supposed to live, being selfless, understanding that we're here to be a service to others and not just have a small mindset where we're just living for ourselves. And for me, it's more important to live for more than just me and my immediate family, but I want to be able to extend a hand out to those who, like the fatherless, widows, those who don't feel like they have family or don't know who they are, and extending my hand out to the whole community.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of family, I have an awareness of certain things that have happened in my family, and I'm sure you had some of the same things. And when we look at what happens in our families, sometimes there are folks within who have bitterness, who have resentment about certain things, and those kinds of things kind of affect how we function as family. Can you talk about some of the things that perhaps you have faced within your family, things that you've been able to overcome and learn from and move things forward with?
Absolutely. I have a song from the album Legacy entitled Letter to My Father. Powerful song. If I could talk about that a little bit, my father passed in October of 2019. So God bless him, rest in peace, rest his soul. And I'm just grateful before he left that I was able to make peace with him. We have a history of pain and hurt and trauma, in the dynamics of our relationship, him not being there during a significant amount of my childhood. And so for a long time I did carry resentment and anger and all these things, right? But before he passed, I did make peace with him. And what happened was I was able to take that pain and be able to wake up. It strengthened me. It woke up the power on the inside of me, that I didn't even know that I had. So it actually did a good service to me, when you turn your pain into motivation and things like that. So I was able to sit with him, but when he passed, I felt somewhat of a void, because I was grateful that we made peace. There's so much I wanted to talk to him about, so many conversations I wanted to have with him, and I discovered that a lot of the things that he may wanted to keep on the surface and I wanted to go deeper with, he wasn't quite ready for it. He kind of ran away from his fears, and I was running towards them. So we kind of clashed a little bit. So that made me a little angry that he left. I felt like he left prematurely before we had these conversations I wanted to have. Because I was so passionate and so seeking and wanting to know about my history and where I come from. So when he passed, I was more in a place of gratitude. No pun intended. That's the project before later.
Right.
I was more in that space because I was like, I was able to have that peace with him. But then a year after, 1 year anniversary of his transition, I started going through all these different emotions because of that void. So what I did was, me writing a song, Letter to My Father, it was like therapy for me. Me going to talk to a therapist, which would cost thousands and thousands of dollars, I was able to work on my soul salvation within myself. And just, meditate, work with my emotions to get to a place of peace with my pen. You know, so I wrote, you know, I journaled how I felt, all of my thoughts, and I never forget how I felt when I heard the beat, the track. I'm like, oh, this is the perfect track to get this out. So it took about maybe 4 to 5 weeks for me to really, you know, work through all those emotions and write them on paper and complete it in a song. And then the album just dropped, and I'm already getting, you know, these amazing reviews. It really touches people. It really connects with people, because what I do in the songs, I show people what it looks like to come from a place of pain, to go through those raw and real feelings that you have when you're angry. I don't really want to sugarcoat it, like I lay it out flat. But you walk this line because at the same time you still want to honor. You know, you don't want to come off in a way that's dogmatic, disrespectful, and especially when my father's no longer being here. You gotta, you know, that's a really delicate line to walk. But I was very transparent about my process, but getting to the other side of that pain and finding the blessing and the joy, and why I had to go through those things to become the best version of myself and help others who have the exact same story. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I guess what I'm curious about is, in this song, are you saying what you would have said to your father had you had that opportunity?
I'll say it like this. I had the opportunity to share most of what I said in the song. So some of the things I'm reiterating, right? Because I realized that this story is not just for me. Now, if I was selfish, I would say, I don't have anything to prove. I won't say this because I've already worked out what I need to work out with. But because I'm making myself a vessel for other people and I'm being of service, I can reiterate some things to show people how to get there, right? So to answer your question, I reiterated some things that I got a chance to talk to him about, but it was an extension of things that I didn't say while he was here physically. But I do believe that he's still alive. He's not here physically, but he's still alive, and he lives through me. His spirit is still alive, and he lives through me. So as I get to a place of peace, I know that he's proud, and he can smile from heaven, because that's what it looks like for his legacy to live on.
Speaking of that, why don't we take a quick listen to it? So we're going to take a listen to Ryan Armand right here on 95.9 FM WOBU, a Burnsville Park Community Radio Station. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. We'll be right back. We're back with recording artist Ryan Armand right here on Open Door with Vince Robinson. He has just released a new project called Legacy, and we just took a listen to a song that he wrote specifically for his father that had quite a few lessons for those who are listening. I have to tell you how much I relate to what you're talking about, because I've been in a similar space in that my father made transition a few years ago, and I also share that common thought that my father lives through me, you know. So I don't look at it as my father is gone. I see him as a presence in my life, and I also see him as a motivation for me to continue the work that he started.
Absolutely.
My father was president of the NAACP in Ross County for 19 years, and my sister has assumed that responsibility. So she's carrying on his legacy.
Awesome.
I'm carrying on his legacy in the lanes in which I travel. So, you know, years ago, you know, you might get kind of down or, you know, experience a long period of grief because someone who has been close to you, or perhaps not, has transitioned, and perhaps there was no closure. Perhaps you didn't get to a space where you wanted to say all the things that you wanted to say. But when you understand the eternal existence that we all have, you know that it's not the end, it's just a new beginning.
Absolutely.
And then the other beauty that many don't understand is that because our ancestors lived through us, they actually empower us to carry out the things that they were about, you know. So, yeah, I really relate to that. Let's talk about some of the other things that you have on the album. Tell us about some of the other songs that you've written.
Absolutely. So I start off the album with a song called Regal Talk, which is basically, you know, coming into the, you know, I was excited about that song because I went to another level. and coming to the reality of being able to articulate who I am. It's like, in order to know where you're going, you have to know who you are. You know, so I'm really breaking down in great detail my identity. You know, and the song is well balanced. I have a good friend of mine, a sister. Her name is Jay Blair, so she features on the song as well. And people love that song as well. That's another one of the fans' favorites. But Regal Talk, you know, I speak from a king's perspective, and then she speaks from a queen's perspective. So it's so empowering because it's the best way to start off the album. You know, you have to know who you are to even create a legacy, right? So it's powerful.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about regal, you're talking about a certain state of being royal. You're talking about someone being in a position to be respected because of who they are and what they do. And you are kind of providing a definition of yourself in terms of identity. You know, when you look at the way we identify in the society, and especially when you look at it within a musical context, you have brothers who are calling each other N-words, you know, and other derogatory things. That's the way they identify, that's the way they self-define. But, you know, there's also the perception that folks have based on those things. But when you talk about someone being royal, when you talk about someone being regal, when you talk about being a king, there's a certain amount of respect that goes along with that, you know, and you have to demand respect, because if you don't demand respect, it won't be given. So I think that's a really good place to start.
Yes, sir. And for me, it's like, you know, words have power, context matters, as far as like the heart of what you're saying when you say what you say. And what I've come to understand is we can bridge the gap when we're able, you know, when it comes to our differences or whatever the case may be, when we're able to walk in love and like we were just talking about, you know, air, being an example and giving another alternative. So instead of like, you know, pointing our finger in people's face and telling them what they should be doing or what they shouldn't be doing, hey, if you don't, maybe you don't know what that looks like, and maybe I can be the alternative to show you what that looks like, and maybe I can inspire you and meet you where you're at. You know what I mean? So that was a huge inspiration with this album too. One of my favorite artists of all time, legendary, is Rakim. And he was able to, you know, reign and do what he did and put his stamp in the game, and his name lives on. You know, he's in people's favorite rapper, or top 5 easy. And he didn't have to compromise what he wanted to do. He wanted to make music, you know, that was tasteful for all generations, and that his parents can listen to. So I've been through different chapters and journeys, you know, with my gift and things like that. But I don't have the curse to get my point across. You know what I mean? I don't knock those who, however, people express themselves at all. My thing is, it becomes a little bit watered down or tainted when you're doing it every other word or every sentence. It's like you can't express the words that you have that's on your mind. It's a lazy way out, if you will. You know what I mean? So, yeah, my way of, you know, shifting the culture and, you know, keeping it healthy is leading by example, but still being relatable and not so far-fetched where I'm holier than thou and you can't relate to anything that I'm saying. So, you know, bringing it together, a marriage.
Talk about the music, the choices that you made in terms of the foundation for your words, because we're living in an era where sonically a lot of music sounds the same, you know, and I'm not being critical of trap music, because, you know, it is what it is. When I was in my 20s, there was a sound that was prevalent then, and then, you know, we shift into the 80s and the 90s, and then the sound takes a different shape, and now we're in a very mechanized type of landscape when it comes to music, and folks using auto-tune and all of that. I listened to a few of the cuts at a gathering that you had the other night, and I just noticed that there was kind of a nostalgic element to some of the music.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to the whole project. I would imagine that you probably have used some trap type beats, but then you also honor your responsibility as an artist to accompany that with a message that has some substance to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. My thing is, it's all about balance. It's all about balance. For me, like you said, I want to honor those, that came before me. I'm a huge fan of just classic hip hop at its purest form. So you definitely get that with this album, So a lot of people can appreciate it for that. But I'm also embracing where music and the culture is going. So I don't want to be that person who's so critical where I'm not opening up my mind to a different expression or a different sound. So I'm learning how to, I may be more on the side of, the purest form and classic hip hop. And when it comes to those other sounds, the trap, I have those influences on the album as well. Not as much, it's more of the hip hop, but I have singles that I've done and other songs that I've done where I'm influenced by the trap and other genres as well. I just don't believe in putting myself in a box, because that's how you start to lose the reach of the people as well. When you box yourself. If my heart is to be selfless and reach the people, I need to speak their language. That's important to me. So I don't like to get bored with doing the same thing over and over either. So I like to explore all kind of different genres. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's beautiful because, if you're trying to reach people, sometimes, as you say, you have to speak their language, and perhaps their language is the beat of trap music. Mm-hmm. But then they start playing it and they start vibing to the beat, and then perhaps something happens and their ear opens and they say, "Oh, what is this brother talking about?" And then they hear the message that's resonating in relationship to the music, and then it provides value to that, as opposed to that foundation being trap music, and then they're talking about trapping.
Right. And it's happening in real time, like the very thing that you said. I just had someone that I'm close to share that with me. You know what I mean? Vibing to the beat, like even with the song "And It Don't Stop." That's track 2 on the album. That's another fan favorite that people love. So it's very vibey, it's catchy, it makes you feel good, but the words are potent when you really listen and hone in. I'm a nerd when it comes to lyricism. You know what I mean? So when you vibe into that thing and then you start to catch the words, like, oh, the message. he actually saying something. There's a lot of power in the words. So again, bringing them two together. That perfect marriage where you're able to make something that people can feel, vibe to, rock to, but you still saying something that's significant. Like you said, it has substance. So I'm giving all kind of different vibes. I'm melodic, melody, spoken word, trap, hip hop. All kind of different flavors on the album.
Could you talk a little bit about your process? And what leads me to that question is just thinking about how certain folks write. Notorious B.I.G. might be in the studio all night. He had a few accoutrements that helped him in his creative process. There was kind of a party that was going on, but somehow, some way he was able to do that. But then you take someone like Eminem, and he's just sitting there writing, and he's thinking about how I can shock with the next wordplay,
right,
with the next verse. How can I, say something that just is so totally out of the box that it's gonna grab your attention? What is your process like when it comes to creating?
My process is very unique. I'm inspired by everything that I do and everywhere that I go. Every conversation that I hear, hearing others' perspectives. I'm a real big advocate of being a steward over my thoughts. And being a steward over what inspires me. Taking note of it, writing it down immediately, or putting it in my notes in my phone. So I don't like a lot of noise when I'm really in my bag and in my space. I do like for it to be quiet, and I like to have my space. So I may be inspired by being at a party or elements of high energy or whatever the case may be, but to write in the midst of that is not ideal for me. I'll be inspired by it. I'll steward my thoughts or whatever it may be that inspire me, and then get to it when I get to it, because I'll remember the feeling and the experience that I had. But when I'm actually going through the process of writing, I'm isolated. I like to be isolated unless I'm collaborating with another artist, of course. But yeah, man, it's unorthodox. I can write a song in a day. I can write a song, like I said, within 4 to 5 weeks, where I may start it, leave it alone, come back to it, you know. So it's all over the place, man. I just like to really move based on how I'm led, how I feel, and the thing that I've learned over time is not to be paralyzed by perfection. You know, having every, you know, being so gun-ho on it being perfect. Sometimes the beautiful things was not perfect. It's just raw. It's an emotion, it's a feeling. So just learning how to just be in the moment and capture those moments and then lay it down.
Yeah. No, that's so true. I mean, sometimes the beautiful thing is a thing that happened by mistake because it wasn't something that you planned, but then it happened and you be like, oh, wow, that's dope. You know, I'm going to keep that.
Right.
You know,
one musician to another, so y'all know you get it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, some of the most beautiful things for me are just things that happen in a moment of improvisation, you know, because they're so unexpected. But, you know, I've learned this in music. You're always just a half tone away from the right tone.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is bend that wrong tone into the right tone. That's something that Herbie Hancock learned from Miles Davis years ago. You are listening to and watching Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is Ryan Armand. He's a recording artist with a new project called Legacy. We're going to talk more about that, and we're going to talk about some of the other lanes he's traveling in when we come back. This is 95.9 FM WOVU, a Burton Car community radio station. Back in a few. We are back. Vince Robinson on Open Door on 95.9 FM WOVU with my guest, recording artist Ryan Armand, whose latest project, Legacy, is just wowing folks. You have that project under your belt. You have another project that you talked about called Gratitude. And
yes, sir.
I don't want gratitude to go unspoken of because just the concept alone is something that is empowering people now.
Absolutely.
When they understand the power of gratitude. So I want to give you a moment to talk about that and why it's important.
Absolutely. Gratitude, that title really stood out to me because of the definition. The B clause of that definition is what really made me want to inspire me to name it gratitude. So, you know, gratitude on the surface, we all know that it's being thankful, being appreciative of, you know, being grateful for. The B clause of that is returning kindness onto others. So to be grateful for your personal blessings and the individual relationship that you have with the Creator it has its place. But then when you are extending that to other people and you're being a service, now you're returning the kindness onto others. And again, we're talking about paying it forward. You know what I mean? And that's where the real fulfillment comes from. So gratitude is, you know, service, the fulfillment of helping others, and just being grateful where you are, never losing sight of where you come from. The reason why I'm able to attain more is because I'm grateful for what I already have. You know, tomorrow has enough worries in itself. I'm grateful for today. I'm grateful for this moment. We had talked about too off air about how important it is to just be grateful for the stage that you're on, whether it's a small stage or a big stage. If I'm constantly comparing myself to my neighbor who has more acres than me or more money or more wealth or whatever the case may be, I can lose sight of my individual race. You know, I'm gonna get tripped up if I'm looking at my neighbor. You know, I'm gonna trip up. You know, so it's important to just be grateful for what you have, and then you know, the universe responds to that to where you can attain more.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing too about that neighbor who has more acreage, that neighbor might be in a better position to manage that acreage. Right. Maybe you ain't ready to manage that amount of acreage, you know? So you have to deal with what's in front of you and not be so concerned about what somebody else has. You know, back in the day, just pulling the covers off of how old I am, there was this whole idea of
how young you are.
Right. Keeping up with the Joneses. You know, that used to be a thing back in the day. Today, I was part of a meeting and there was somebody in the meeting, and you know, I didn't really know a whole lot about that person, so I just Googled the person, and then I found out who they were and where they are in life, and it's like, wow, You know, I know this person because of where they are, they have a lot, you know. And it's easy to begin to compare yourself to where others are, but you know, there's this other idea, and that is that things happen in their time. Things happen when they're supposed to. So you have to be capable to be a steward of the things that you're responsible for. So if you're not capable or if you're not ready, it's really irresponsible for you to have those things knowing that you won't manage them properly.
Absolutely.
You know, but then the other thing that you mentioned about gratitude and that being a two-way street, you know, I kind of recently discovered the power of gratitude, and just knowing that as much as I can to put myself in a position to express my gratitude and the impact that it has on folks when they receive that gratitude. It's almost like it's contagious, you know, because you give them gratitude and then they want to give you gratitude back.
That's how it works.
You know, and then you have this expansion of gratitude, and then you have folks who are getting along a lot better because they have something to appreciate about each other.
That's right. That's right. So there wouldn't be legacy without gratitude. You know, I really opened up on gratitude, you know, with the intro. I give a huge amount of transparency of my journey and what I've been through, as far as me first being inspired to pick up a mic in the first place. And then, you know, from my adolescent years to high school, college, losing loved ones, you know, going through the heartache of a divorce. You know, I share so much, but then at the end, I bring people through all of that pain and show them what it looks like to be able to have gratitude and see why you had to go through those things, and being able to find joy and appreciation for why you went through those things. So, yeah, when you work out those things within yourself, then you realize, this is my legacy. I can build a legacy. You know, this thing can expand, you know, to help others do the same. And then they tap into their superpower or their gifts and what they're great at. And then just keep passing it on and on and on. Yeah. And that's how we create wealth.
So talk about how you recover. I mean, you mentioned the divorce, and we really haven't talked too much about that, but you know, many times two people will go through that experience, and it will be one that in which there's a lot of resentment harbored. Because, you know, well, you did this and I did that, and you know, things didn't work out or whatever. But then sometimes you go through what you went through, and then you realize that you're in a better place because you made the decision to make that break, and you become a better person as a result of it. And there's no reason to be resentful. It's just recognizing that, hey, we tried it, it didn't work out, but I can move forward and I can be better, and you can move forward and you can be better, and we can both be better, you know, respectively in our different places.
Absolutely. What I've come to understand is we attract who we are. So instead of pointing a finger about what someone else did, everyone that I'm connected to is a lesson or something, or it's something I'm supposed to get out of it, out of every relationship. I have to examine myself and look into my own heart and see, you know, where I'm strong and where I lack. We find this out in relationships, even beyond just romantic relationships, relationships with our parents, our siblings, friends, co-workers, you know? So there's not a limit to it, but what I've come to understand is when it comes to pain and differences and things not working out, what's the lesson I need to get out of this so that I don't make the same mistake going forward, you know? So, and being able to honor those, even the people that hurt us or may not be at the same level of awareness or doing that internal work, you know, still wishing them well, you know, still choosing peace. So it's like a lot of times people don't know they get stuck and you know, have anniversaries of their pain. They rehearse it over and over and over to the point where they get paralyzed and crippled and can't get anything done. So I don't share my pain just for the sake of doing it. There has to be light at the end of the tunnel. I share it to show people how to work through it. You know, I'm a therapist, a doctor in my own right. You know, and that's another level of being responsible for my gift. I can make you dance. I can make you feel real good. You know, I can get you excited about my lyrical ability. you know, and all of the great things that I do as far as my skill set. But when I have a message and I'm able to serve you and show you how to work through these, you know, life experiences, that's what makes it, that's what takes it to a whole nother level.
Okay. We've had some conversation, and I'm just, again, reflecting on your trajectory. And I remember at a certain point in time, you were an artist within a church or religious context. And I've seen you grow and evolve to where you are right now. And when we spoke the other day, you told me that it was really less about religion and more about spirituality. Can you expand on how you made that transition and why you made the transition?
Absolutely. You know, religion is meant to cause division. You know, religion is groups. It's like clicking. You know, so I've come to understand as I've deepened my relationship and my journey in spirituality that it's more about love, walking in love. You know, a lot of people, when it comes to, you know, religion, spirituality, are gun-ho on the academia, how much they know, you know, and you miss the mark, or you get off balance when you're not wanting to have the spirit and walk in love. So it's not so much about knowledge and how much you know and how much you study, but can you become the Messiah and love on people? You know what I mean? So that's what I've come to understand. We can really break this thing down and go down a rabbit hole, but in a nutshell, religion causes division and spirituality brings people together.
Okay. Yeah, I agree on a lot of different levels, but the thing that kind of resonates with me is that sometimes we get so immersed in doctrine and interpretation and all these extraneous things, and we lose sight of the one common thing that brings everybody together, and that is love. And you expressed that just a few moments ago. If somehow we could learn how to love each other in spite of the differences that we have, despite the divisions that we have, you know. And I agree that religion is one of the most divisive things that we have. I mean, look at how many different denominations there are within the Protestant religion.
Right.
And there are, you know, there are folks who will just have knockdown, drag out fights because you say we should do this, we think you should do that, you know. So again, you have this constant conflict that doesn't move us forward. And we're living in a day and time where if we don't become united in terms of our purpose and in terms of ways that we can survive all the chaos and confusion that is happening in the world, we won't even be in a position to have any gratitude.
It's so true. And I love what you said. It's about finding a common ground, right? Because no one cares what you know until they know that you care, right? So in order to be able to reach people, even if you do have something to offer as far as knowledge or helping them in their awareness with some things, before people can listen to you or before you can be able to lead them or teach them or guide them, they have to know that you care. So there has to be a common ground first before we can even have dialogue about how to get to another place of growth and evolution. So that's very important.
Yes. So when did you make the paradigm shift in your career? When did you decide, well, I'm going to move away from that and move towards this?
I started my ministry, you know, around 2013 is when I started wanting to really, you know, develop my relationship, you know, with the Most High. So that's when things started to shift as far as me being responsible and being in ministry and being up under leadership and mentors, you know. So it was around that time, and then it started to evolve when I felt led and called to go to the community that I'm at now, City of Life Community Builders. You know, I had my apostle, Pastor Andre Dotson, along with Pastor Rose, Derek Rose, who are mentors, leaders, who are my leaders, and have really helped me and shape my mindset and helping me understand who I am, you know. So everything that I'm able to do, everything I'm able to accomplish is because I'm connected to the community that I'm connected to, and I have mentorship. Before, you know, it's a lot harder when you're a lone ranger trying to figure things out, you know what I mean? But when you're able to humble yourself and be up under solid leadership and everything like that, then you're able to come into another level of spirituality.
Okay. All right. You're listening to Open Door and viewing it right here on YouTube, as a matter of fact. Right here also on 95.9 FM WOVU. My guest is Ryan Armand, recording artist with his latest project, Legacy, and we will continue our conversation right after this on 95.9 FM WOVU. We are rounding third and heading home on Open Door with Vince Robinson and my guest, Ryan Armand. He is a recording artist and his latest project is Legacy. We've also talked about a previous project called Gratitude, and we've just talked about some of the folks that you are associating with in a spiritual journey. I'd like to shift the focus to your activist angle. Talk about some of the things that you are involved in as an activist.
Yes, sir. I am involved in, I'm with an organization called Civilians Against Violence. So, you know, what we do as activists, you know, we pour into the youth, you know, we break things down to them that are very important that they need to know, their amendments, their rights, how to deal with the police, how to knowing your rights and everything like that, but also knowing how to comply, not allowing anger to put you in a position to put yourself in jeopardy, but being strategically, you know, being strategic about how you deal with warfare, you know, and that opposition and our oppressor. So, you know, we pour into the youth when it comes to those things. We're here to hold the police accountable, making sure that the arrests are fair and that they're not abusing their authority, you know, so we cop watch. We support families who, you know, who lost loved ones, especially young people, due to senseless violence. You know, so we're very big on being proactive and not reactive. You know, too many times we're not showing up until the funeral or a rally after something happens. But what we're here to do is educate and prevent a lot of things before it get there. You know what I mean? So just a number of things that we do.
How do folks find you, young people? How do they connect with you and what you're doing?
Sure. As far as on the activist side, you know, Civilians Against Violence, you know, you have civiliansagainstviolence.com, www.civiliansagainstviolence.com. So you have that. We're connected on Facebook as well. Me, myself, Ryan Armand, I'm on Facebook, RYAN space ARMAND. On Instagram, it's spelled the same, RYAN_ARMAND. So my presence is there. And, you know, I try to utilize the other ones too, Snapchat and what have you, but majority of my presence is on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Armand is something that I'm familiar, Ryan, I'm sorry, is something that I'm familiar with. Armand is not. I think there was an actor back in the day, his name was Armand Asante. Okay, but I was just wondering, I thought about that earlier today. I'm like, well, I wonder where Armand came from, and I wanted to actually start the show with a conversation with you about your name. What do you know about Armand?
Sure. So actually, my father, I found out, you know, in my latter years that my father named me Armand, and it was inspired by, I believe he said, a German actor.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I looked it up, you know, I'm such a nerd when it comes to, you know, studying and things like that in history. But when I looked it up, Armand in Hebrew means soldier. Soldier/warrior. That was very profound to me. You know what I mean? So that's another thing too. There's a song on the album called Legacy, featuring my cousin Twine, who as an artist goes by Twine Twilsey, and then my partner, King Izzy, Young Izzy, is also on the project. So that song is powerful because I'm laying it out, you know, where I come from. You know what I mean? I big up my mom, my dad, I honor them, stepfather, grandfather, So to go back to your question, Armand means soldier warrior.
Okay, interesting.
And Ryan means king, descendant of the Most High, little king. And we're little guys here on earth to do the work of the Most High.
Okay. All right. So there was some synchronicity involved in your naming that you have recently discovered, I'd imagine.
Yeah, when I decided to go forward with Ryan Armand as an artist and a brand name, I liked how it sounded, but I did my due diligence and my research, and a friend of mine at the time, we were doing a Bible study, and she had looked up the definition of everybody's name that was a part of the group. So she did everyone's first name. So I learned what Ryan was. So then I did my homework on Armand. You know what I mean? And when I brought the two together and seeing that it had meaning as well, that's I just ran with it.
Okay. Well, I did my homework long ago, and I found out that Vincent means conqueror.
Awesome.
So perhaps it's relevant, perhaps it's not.
Oh, it's very relevant.
Yeah, so, but yeah, what's in a name, they ask. And earlier we just talked about the power of names, so it's really refreshing to know now that you've done that homework and you found out what those names mean, and you also found out that they are relevant to who you are.
Absolutely. It's like they're affirmations. When you hear the power and the meaning in your name, it's a responsibility, it's an accountability. So even in your darkest hours or your toughest, the biggest challenges that we face in life, you remember who you are and you go through whatever it is that you need to go through. So you could never give up being a conqueror. You're here to conquer and make things happen based on what you're called to. You know what I mean? When I knowing that Ryan means king, I'm here to take dominion and reign here on earth, and to be a soldier and a warrior, no matter what challenges I may face, to press through those things. And I strongly encourage you to listen to track 9 and 2.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna listen to the whole thing, and I'm one of them old school cats, so you can look that up if you want to. I'm one of them old school cats. I drive in a vehicle, just tighten it up right there.
Here.
Yeah, the other lever. No, that one. The long one with the ball on the end of it. We can tighten that up.
Go this way. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was. Now I just lost my thought. It's okay. I just wanted to get to the fact that you have connected with young folk, and I just wanted to know how you connect with them and what kinds of things you're hearing from them.
The thing that's the most important to, like I talked about before, no one cares what you know until they know that you care. So it's really I apply the same principle that I apply with all humankind, with all, no matter all walks of life, no matter the ages. But young people want to be heard, so their nature is already to rebel and to give you a hard time when you're challenging them, right? So in order to be effective with doing so, they have to know that you care and you love on them by letting them, showing them too that they have a voice and listening to them. So when you're able to listen, you know what to speak to, or you know how to handle, or you know how to deal, because you have to know who you labor among. Every child is different. You got some children who are more outspoken, some that are shy, some that are timid, some that are tough, some who are passive, so it's all about building a relationship. And when you know who you're dealing with, you know how to go in and out before them.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier that some young people tend to be very angry. And as an elder, I'm always curious about what's in the minds of our young folks. So what are some of the issues that they're dealing with that lead them to harbor the anger that they have?
The most frustrating thing, and when I reflect on my childhood and when I thought about the times where I was the most rebellious or angry or what have you, the most frustrating thing is when you feel something and you don't know how to work through it or articulate it. So what you do, you lash out, you act out, that spews out in different ways. So the anger comes from, and the pain comes from a lack of understanding. But when you have an understanding, of your existence and who you are, and you have people who love you that went first, that went before you, who can train you and teach you, then you can get to a place of peace. And anger is something that it's an emotion that we will feel as long as we're here on earth, right? But you know, the Bible says be angry but sin not. So it's a natural thing and it's a normal thing to get angry about things, right? But it's all about knowing how to channel that energy and knowing what to do with it and exercising self-control when you deal with anger. You know, anger is something that comes from a place of passion, you know, but when you're able to channel it and use it as an opportunity to lead or teach, that's when you can win souls, you know.
I think another thing that is probably absent is some type of mechanism for conflict resolution. Are you aware of any things that you do or your organization does to implement some measure of conflict resolution as a means of perhaps dispelling or quelling some of the anger that young folks are dealing with?
Yeah, basically, I know I touched on this before, but being proactive and not reactive. So when you're able to discern things and speak to things head on and right on before they escalate or elevate, a lot of things can be diffused, you know. So when we see somebody who's going through those things and trouble, we like to deal with it right heads on before it spins out of control. When you're so caught up in self, you can neglect something, and then when you look up, you're dealing with a monster. You know what I mean? So I think the key to being effective and successful is caring enough to speak to it right away before it spins out of control.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about a number of things. I want to bring things back to your project and give you a chance to shout out the folks that you worked with on it. When I saw you the other day, I had to compliment you on what I call the optics, and that is when I see Ryan on Instagram, when I see him on Facebook, I see visuals that are very complimentary, that are very professional looking and really represent your brand well. So I know you're doing your homework on that. So talk about some of the folks that you're working with and some of the folks who are responsible for delivering you to the public in such a nice and precise way.
Absolutely. I don't want to forget anybody because it's so many people who have contributed to the ministry, the projects plural. So, but as far as the specific project with Legacy, you know, I give a shout out to the featured artists, Jay Blair, Young Izzy, you know, my cousin also was on there, Twine. And so those were the featured artists. I give a shout out to my engineer, Dalo. So he engineered it. You know, you see footage of him as well with what I shared online and things like that. So yeah, man, it's just been a great journey. Yeah.
Okay. And are you conceptualizing or plotting your next course of action in terms of recordings?
Absolutely, always strategically, you know, working behind the scenes to continue to write, continue to push the message and the story forward, you know, because as long as I'm here, as long as I'm breathing and I'm able to see the light of another day, I'm definitely committed to the work and giving and being a blessing to the people.
Okay. His name is Ryan Armand. He is a recording artist right here in Cleveland, Ohio. His latest project is Legacy. How can they get it?
It's on all digital outlets, all streaming platforms, Apple, Tidal, Spotify, you know, you name it. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, look out for it. I know I got Spotify, so I'll be tuning in. I'll probably pull some from that and put that on the show so you can hear some of it too. I'd like to thank you for joining us on Open Door.
Absolutely.
As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace.
Peace. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Much respect.
Glad to do it, man.
Yes, sir. Love it, man. Great conversation.
Indeed.
You great at what you do too. I can tell this is what you do.
Man, I've been doing this since I was 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
It's been a journey of over 40 years. So.
Yeah. Oh, she's gonna kill me.
Yeah. Well, let's call her.
call her right now.
I'm gonna call her for you.